Hi, I'm Tony Russo, and this is a Bagel Manifesto, where I share stories about coming to terms with belief, culture, and the profound sense of loss that nobody really cares about bagels anymore. Okay, let's get into it.
All right, so first of all, if you hear the dogs in the background, I've been waiting for like an hour. They're never going to stop, and I can't stop living my life because someone is just perfectly happy to have their dogs in their backyard barking for an hour and a half. What are you going to do? I live among neighbors, and I have good neighbors. So sometimes, I'm sure my shenanigans aren't pleasurable to them, even though they're not dog related. That is not what this is about. But I figured, in case you're here, I'm not going to be able to get it taken out by the time I get this up. This week, though, I do want to talk about headshots and how important they are. It started in, I think the first time I noticed how important headshots were when I was a reporter. I worked near Ocean City, Maryland, and I covered Ocean City and the surrounding area, and I covered it in the run up to the Great Recession, like the real estate bubble. And so I was knee deep in real estate agents, and I want to tread lightly here because their real estate agents are good people. I'm sure they'll have, nice lives. I'm sure their dogs love them. But they're a special breed. And one of the earliest things I learned about realtors is they use their best headshot forever. So you could, see ads regularly for, a 43-year-old woman who sells real estate, and then meet her at an event and notice that she's really more like knocking on 80, and is just perfectly content. She just keeps running the same cards. And I always, my first observation then was, do you think people would rather buy a house from you if they think that you're a younger person and then find out that you just haven't changed your business card since the 1980s? I feel like that's not the case, but you know what? I don't know. They make a better living than me. They're good at their jobs. God bless them. But that just kind of put headshots on my radar. I've always been lucky. I've been lucky for the last 20-ish years, 15-ish years. My wife's a photographer. I get one every 6 months, like clockwork. I haven't always done that, but I have since the story that I want to tell you. So again, I cover the Ocean City area. One of the things that Ocean City is not known enough for, I guess, is casualties. So many kids die every year in Ocean City. It's sad, but it's inevitable because, we encourage them to come and to, drink and to fall off balconies. And so that's the kind of the thing that Ocean City is less known for than it probably ought to be. So there's always, a couple kids die in June. And I remember one time there was a young person who had who had died in a traffic accident. And so instead of falling, so sometimes kids fall off balconies, sometimes they run out in front of cars, sometimes drunk adults run them over in cars when they're minding their own business. There are so many ways to die in June in Ocean City. It's a shock. And so this person was one of those casualties. And I want to tread really lightly here again, because I don't want this to be about the kid or the kid's parents or anything like that. It's just the first example of what has become many. And so when we got the kid's obituary, it had a photo that he had clearly taken of himself by himself in the bathroom mirror. And that was the best photo available of him. And it made me sad. I don't know, there's 1,000 reasons it could have been that photo, and I'm not making any judgments. But it made me sad, and it made me very sensitive to the photos that go with the obituaries. And after that, reading through the paper, I have to edit the obituary section. This is back when paper still had obituary sections. And I always wondered, like, a lot of times photos were clearly cropped from parties the person had been taken in. Like, the person died and no one had any idea where to get a recent good photo of them. And sometimes it's a vanity thing. I think a lot of times it's a vanity thing. When a lot of the World War II guys started, dying off, a lot of it was, military photos from 1943. This guy lived his entire life, and his obituary photo was, he was 20 and going off to war and wearing his snappy outfit. And he looked great in it. And again, I don't begrudge anybody it. I just really just want to kind of draw our eyes toward this interesting phenomenon. Because people, like, I'm doing this on video as well as on audio in case you don't watch the video. And I'm a big guy. I've got a red face that is, a little veinier than I would like it to be. And, my teeth are sometimes a little crookeder than I'd like them to be, but it's my face. And, I've learned to live with it. And I think one of the ways I've learned to live with it is by looking at it so much. I don't want to be afraid to have my photo published. I don't want to be uncomfortable having my photo published. If I wanted to be less fat and less veiny, I would have, exercised more and drank less booze. It's just not the way my face works right now, which is fine. And so now that it's kind of my job to look through obituaries, I've got to say, I can't help but judge the pictures. And, I don't want to say in a mean way, but I've got to say it's probably meaner than I mean for it to be. I just get amused by, poorly cropped photos, poorly conceived photos, blurry photos. And the main reason is that, again, if you're watching this, then, I have a telephone. Like, you can get you don't need a professional headshot, but you can get a good picture of yourself with a friend without much effort. And that's what I'm suggesting, we start to think about is maybe you should get a regular headshot. There's actually been studies done that show that one of the ways to feel less old is by keeping your photographs up to date in the house. So, I can find baby pictures of my children, but all of the pictures of my children, most of the pictures of my children have been taken in the last 4 or 5 years. They kind of still look like themselves, and I still look like myself. And so it's not, oh, remember when I was young and beautiful and had my whole life in front of me. It's just a question of, this is what I looked like at this time. And I think that has helped. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, all credit to my wife, because in addition to being a photographer, she's also the one that pointed this out, that, it would make us feel better to have more recent photos of ourselves around. And so it's one of the things that I've kind of started doing more intentionally in the last, let's say, 10 years, is I try to get a headshot every 6 months. The alternative is to just have the last picture that you can find be the one that represents you when people find out you die. Is it morbid? It's a little morbid, but it's because that's what the facts of the matter are. There's no way around the fact that people are going to want to see a photo of the person whose obituary they're reading when they're reading an obituary. Today, there's even less an excuse because we all have, a kind of a social media profile, even if it's just a private Facebook that you use to look at your grandkids or to stalk, I don't know, potential suitors or whatever. We have access to the technology. And the more often, I take so many photos of people and I don't like the way I look. I don't like the way I look. One of the reasons I think they say that is because they don't see how they look from day to day. They see the occasional photo and they don't put it out there, and they don't come to terms with how they look. And now there's also unflattering photos. Like, there are more than several unflattering photos that I have just, decided to delete, to go without because it's showing you at your worst. But there's some place between showing you at your worst and, having that fake mask that filters tend to put on people, that you can look however you want. The one thing that I never want to look is vain. Not only because I'm not vain, but because if I were vain, I would be really bad at that kind of thing. And I'm one of those guys who'd prefer to not do something than to fail at it. When it comes to silly cultural things anyway, I like to learn things. So that's really what I have for this week is, if you haven't had your headshot taken recently, take it. Go get your significant other, a friend, a coworker, stand up against a white wall, just shoot you from the top of your chest to the top of your head, center it as best as you can, and make it your profile photo. And do that with some regularity, so that way you're happy with the way you look, and people know, what you looked like from day to day, not at your best, but what you were as a person, who you looked like as a person, because it's going to be important, and you never know when you're going to need it. So anyway, that's my quick tip for the week, and we'll check in with you next time.
So, what do you think? Even though I've been the only one talking for a while, I'd love to get your impression. You can shoot me an email at bytonyrusso@gmail.com. You can support me and the show by buying my book, Dragged into the Light: Truthers, Reptilians, Super Soldiers, and Death Inside an Online Cult. It's available everywhere you get books. The audio version's out now, and I'd love for you to get that as well, or instead. You can also sign up for the newsletter at abagelmanifesto.com. You can follow me on social at bytonyrusso on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. This show was written and produced by me, Tony Russo. Keep the faith.